Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Before I begin my address this morning, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of this land and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Some of us are descendants of migrants or others might be refugees. We must always thank our nation's first people for caring, for nurturing and giving us this wonderful country called Australia that we call home. I'd also like to acknowledge the presence of Councillor colleagues, Councillor George Barcher and Councillor Tikian Lai. I'd also like to acknowledge Paul Quinn, the President of the VCA, Chapter of New South Wales, and to the Federal President of the VCA, Kate Hoang, for their advocacy and support of the Vietnamese community in Australia. Also, may I acknowledge all board members for respective sub-branches who are here today as well, and community representatives. The Vietnam War saw many Australian soldiers fight in fierce battles. Few were as intense as the battle fought in the rubber plantation in Long Tân on the 18th of August 1966. 108 soldiers of the D Company 6 RAR were cut off and outnumbered by at least 10 to 1, who fought off the brutal attack by the Viet Cong for 3 hours. The casualties were substantial, the most suffered in a single operation in the Vietnam campaign. And yet, in the end, these brave men who fought up against the odds were victorious, pushing the enemy back and inflicting heavy losses to the Viet Cong forces. Their tenacity, their brave stance, their sacrifice were duly rewarded and regarded. The unit received the US Presidential Unit Citation and 15 soldiers received individual Commonwealth decorations for the heroic actions during the battle. While the Viet Cong suffered heavy losses, the Australian troops were also faced with the reality that some of their own would never return home. 17 Australian soldiers were killed in action during the Battle of Long Tân, and 25 were wounded. One of these men dying 9 days after the battle. Their average age was only 21 years of age. 1/3 of Australian company was now dead or wounded, a high cost indeed. The Battle of Long Tân was a defining moment for the Australian task forces in Vietnam. They showed their dominance, even though temporary, at this time in the Phuoc Tuy province. Of course, the war raged for another 9 years and ended with the North Vietnamese armies eventually defeating the South in 1975. Today, though, we remember the bravery and the sacrifice of the veterans of D Company 6 RAR and the 18th of August 1966, and we commemorate those who lost their lives in this battle. On Vietnam's Veterans Day, we also acknowledge all Australians who served in the Vietnam War. On behalf of all Australians, I thank our Vietnamese and our Vietnam veterans for their efforts. And may the souls of the departed rest in peace, lest we forget.
Thank you, Mr. Guy Zangari.